All right, I'd like to welcome to our audience today, everyone to the VesuvITas Verified Show. At VesuvITas, we listen, lead, and design optimized customer experiences. For those of you who are new here, our passion for knowledge regarding emerging customer experience technologies is what drives us to interview senior customer experience thought leaders like we have on the show today. I'm very excited to bring you a short interview with our guest today, who likely needs no introduction based on his years of experience and impact on our industry. But it's my distinct honor today to welcome Vasili Triant, Chief Operating Officer at UJET.CX.
Thank you for having me, Sebastian. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule to meet with us today. You might actually have a more challenging schedule than I do, and that's saying something. So thank you for joining us.
It's good to be
here.
All
right. Well, you look absolutely refreshed. Vasili, what have you been doing lately this summer?
Well, besides work, I just did a big family vacation, took all our kids, and we took off to Europe for about 2.5 weeks. I don't know if that refreshed me because I felt like I needed a vacation from the vacation, but
yes,
dragging around a bunch of kids and going from place to place kind of can get stressful. There's more bags than you can imagine.
Understandable. Well, hopefully you get some time to vacation from your vacation. All right. So I just want to jump right in because I know time is at a premium for you. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your current role at UJET and just highlight some of the exciting work that you're doing there.
Yeah, so at UJET, Chief Operating Officer essentially refers to I own all the go-to-market operations at UJET. So marketing, sales, strategy alliances, business development, all the fun stuff, everything except kind of like the product and engineering sides of things. And, one of the big responsibilities I have has been the executive sponsor of our Google partnership. And so I spend a lot of time working with Google on kind of like long-term joint roadmap planning, joint go-to-market activities for how they look at the customer experience space. And then separately from that, I work with, my VP of Strat Ops around, where do we see the market going over the next 3 to 5 years, both in, what's interesting is we look at it both in the technology piece and more recently, the economics shifting. Right, which changes how people view technology, which changes how people adapt and adopt the technology to their business needs, because it's shifting right now and it's different than it's been for the last decade.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I'm going to want you to unpack that Google relationship here a little bit more in just a minute. I think it's probably valuable for those watching to understand how we kind of got to this interview today. We've noticed that you guys have been really winning some awards and accolades all over the place. It really piqued our interest. So, for example, we came across G2, the world's top B2B SaaS consumer reviews platform, where we noticed that you guys are number one for user or agent satisfaction for 9 consecutive quarters. Yep. Wow. And then also number one for enterprise and mid-market for contact center operations, 9 consecutive quarters. So that can't be an accident then. So there's some consistency there, obviously. That's really impressive. And then we also saw, and this is, I would love for you to talk about this for a moment. 2022 Best of Enterprise Connect winner, best overall. I'm going to pause there and just let you talk about that for a minute, because that's a significant credit, feather in your cap, right, guys?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the crazy part about it is that, we're not some Goliath company, right? That's public and traded on the stock market. We're kind of that growing, nimble, agile company that puts more money into engineering, product, and really kind of, I'll say, sales efforts than we do the marketing and getting involved with all the analysts and the press. So when we win these awards, it's really finally a recognition around the work that we've put in with the product, but with our customers. So when you look at G2, what I find, overly satisfying about G2 is it's customers and users of software going and doing reviews. usually the main people that go do reviews are either people that are super frustrated, right? Because they want to
Right.
complain. It's kind of like
Right.
Glassdoor, right? Or super happy people that really want to get kind of peer-to-peer, connections around what they're doing with the software. So G2 is really one of those things. It's completely independent. It's not a pay to play. You don't get to go wine and dine, one individual and then get recognized in some report, right? And that's how, frankly, a lot of these awards do happen on the market. When you shift to the Enterprise Connect stuff, people can submit awards for these shows, and people submit all kinds of things, right? Typically, it's around new product offerings. We had been working on one that really came from a customer request. And when the Enterprise Connect show was coming up, and of course, we were all super excited to be back in person, we submitted the redundancy story and kind of like this availability story that we had been working on with primarily one customer, but we had brought it to market to more customers at that point. And it was just super unique, and everybody fell in love with it. It was, I think, the first time it wasn't like, oh, a new user experience or a new UI or some kind of knit and niggle feature. It was like game-changing architectural fundamentals delivered that people think about, people talk about, but it's like, is it possible? Is it not possible? Right?
So unpack that a little bit more for those people who may not know specifically what you're talking about. Why was that architectural change or new development that you guys have uniquely put out there? Why is it a game changer for those that are maybe either on an existing cloud contact center platform or are considering a cloud contact center platform? I mean, because you literally sent shockwaves through all of the major providers when that award was given to you.
The product that we announced and we got the reward for was CX Intercloud. And CX Intercloud allows this infrastructure for CCaaS, for cloud contact center as a service, to really be seamless and transition from one infrastructure provider to another, load balance itself between, or fail over between one or the other. And when
so you're literally saying between entire infrastructure providers, not within the infrastructure. So we're talking about an AWS and a GCP, right?
Yeah, you're transcending infrastructure as a service and allowing the software to basically load balance and be redundant between like an Amazon and a Google, right? So GCP and Amazon Web Services, or it could be like GCP and Azure or any kind of combination thereof. Everything that's been built in cloud is infrastructure dependent. And when you look at contact center, people have built their applications specifically on tool sets of an infrastructure provider, which means you are 100% dependent on them and their uptime. And what has happened over the last 8-9 months is this infrastructure, which everybody looked at as bulletproof and rock solid, has now been showing cracks in the foundation. Amazon Web Services has had a number of outages. Some other providers have had one or twosies here and there, but Amazon has probably had the most since the October, November timeframe of 21 and taken down complete infrastructures. And it's not a given that it's going to be up all the time. And when people want to run contact center, which is not only real time, but mission critical applications, you need to be able to have some type of redundancy there. But when everything's based on one provider, there is no redundancy. Like you're kind of stuck. And so the things that we'd been taking for granted for years in this space, you can't take for granted anymore. And we architected something that was unique because of customer demand with all those outages. These simplistic things like reliability, availability, and scale, they still, to this day, are the Achilles heels of the cloud contact center space. Everybody will show you these beautiful interfaces and features, but like the stuff still has reliability challenges, and we've been able to transcend that.
And to your point, not all cloud contact center solutions, infrastructures and architectures are alike. There are significant differences between them, even though at face value to the average consumer, it may look like they're all cloud, right? But there is significant differences between them. Yours, I found to be quite unique because of the resiliency and redundancy and the scalability within the infrastructure itself, but so which seemed bulletproof and rock solid compared to others that we did an RFP recently where you guys came out on top, and it was shocking to see, the differences between your offering and some of the more legacy offerings. And so it was it was shocking for us, and it was really kind of exciting and cool too. So, hat tip to you guys for that. But then you have this additional layer of CX Intercloud that is cutting edge. And so, yeah, hats off to you guys for really being able to staying ahead of the curve. And this evolution of architecture where you just kind of keep on differentiating. Can you speak to the limitations a little bit of premise-based solutions? Because you kind of were hinting at that a little bit versus what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so premise-based solutions, well, on one hand, they were relatively rock solid from a reliability perspective, but there's always kind of a hub and a spoke, right? There's always a head to the application, and then there's kind of these, or some people call them subscribers or parent-child relationship, right, around redundancy,
Right.
but it also is based on a physical location for a customer's equipment. So, you could lose internet and boom, all of a sudden you don't have any contact center applications for any of your agents, which nowadays are scattered throughout the globe. You could lose
Right.
hardware, which ages and needs replacing, right? Or you could have a bug in the software. So what the original idea around cloud is, if we can bring this on-premise infrastructure into the cloud, we can transcend the dependence on that single location. Well, what's happened now is that single location is now just a location in a data center sitting on the east or the west of the United States, or in Frankfurt or in London, whatever it may be. And we forget that it's still dependent on that one space. And hopefully they have enough engineers, enough infrastructure that something doesn't happen. But we've had power outages, we've had telco outages, we've had equipment outages, we've even had human error. Like
Not we, but the on-premise
the industry, solutions. Right? We, the industry. Sorry. Yeah.
Right,
if you look, I think Amazon, right, had a massive outage last year, and they, came back and said that an engineer had wrongly executed some code and took down, I don't even remember what it was, but it took down like almost a whole pod within the East region. And, some of the providers have had these same things. And so we tried to get benefits of cloud infrastructure and cloud development, right? Because now you can leverage things like microservices and containerization, other tools to deliver software faster to customers. But we actually took on-premise reliability, which was pretty bulletproof, and we actually took down that reliability, right? We actually decreased the reliability from prem to cloud. When I say we, I mean the industry. And that has been the Achilles heel. That, if you look at CCAS, it started early 2000s. Some might argue like late 90s, but let's just say early 2000s. To now, we've actually seen like the reliability, while the industry's grown, the reliability is still not the same as it was in the on-premise world.
So we talked about reliability a little bit versus, on-prem versus cloud. Can we talk a little bit about the immediate concerns of business owners and business stakeholders regarding the challenging financial pressures that are going on right now in our economy? How do we try to help get businesses to recession proof as much as possible? And how does your solution or cloud contact center specifically help to mitigate some of that concern within business organizations, which is a real threat?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm going to separate this answer two ways. One, my role as an executive in the contact center space, and second, like me just being a business person thinking soundly about like what's happened really since the global financial crisis in 2008, right? The economy has boomed globally since then. And what's actually happened is we've had this SaaS proliferation beyond any means. And by the way, this happens every boom cycle in an economy. Is all of a sudden these cool tool sets come about. There's great value props around them, great marketing messages, and people start acquiring these tool sets. But the look back at what is it doing for my business? Did it improve my customer experience? did it deliver on the return on investment that was originally proposed to keep driving my business forward? I mean, these applications just sit out there within a company, and you're getting 40, 50, 60 SaaS applications within a company. And now, boom, we hit recession, right? Now we have economic slowdown. So the first thing is, I think there's a SaaS rationalization coming, and everybody should look across how many vendors do I have to do X amount of tasks. And what is going to happen, and what we already see happening with customers, is basically a consolidation of the amount of vendors to do X amount of things. Now, when you break it down to customer experience, I need to deliver good to great customer experience for my business to my customers, whatever that, whether it's B2B or B2C. And what are the applications I need to do that? You will find, and what we already see out there, is that people have bundled so many applications into solving one problem and never looking back at the ROI. I spoke to a customer the other day and I said, hey, you're looking to reduce your cost. 25% was their target. So they wanted a 25% cost reduction across their entire stack. And I said, okay, great. They had 4 vendors to do what one could do. And I said, well, are you getting the ROI that you originally expected across things like automated QA and virtual agent? Specific, I won't say virtual agent, let's call it chatbot, right? Am I getting it around chatbot, and am I getting it around automated QA? And the answer was, we must be getting it. Otherwise, why would we be still paying the bills? And I said, I didn't ask if you were paying the bills. Are you getting the ROI? Is it improving your customer satisfaction? Are you really getting, like, not deflection? I can't stand the word deflection, but are you really getting automated resolution? And is the automated QA that you're doing, is it actually helping you improve quality? Or is it just really cool? You get to look at a report and see intent signals and flags across keywords. And this is where I think you're going to start to see, one, I need to go to vendors that can provide me at least the core needs of those solutions all in one, because I can survive 2 years. I can survive 2 years with core QA, and I could really survive 2 years with something maybe more integrated around virtual agent, both for voice and text, and actually reduce my costs. What'll then happen is you're going to find those vendors that can do those more all-in-one applications become more expert at that, rather than these point solutions. And there are a lot. Right. Sebastian, you know this. There's I don't know, it's like 1,000 chatbot solutions out on the market, right? It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And how do customers know what to select? I mean, rule of thumb has always been, for me, to leverage integrated solutions that have integrated reporting. So you have integrated context for the agents so that they understand where the customer came from as they're flowing through the different touch points and digital and everything else. So you guys have that. That's awesome. So we were talking about on-premise and cloud-based solutions. And, as we're running through and we're evaluating solutions, I come across a lot of, I would say, CIOs that have come from the on-premise world, and they tend to really be almost more interested in TCO instead of ROI. And talk to us a little bit about your thoughts, because you're in a unique position. You've come from being in charge of a lot of the, on-premise world where a lot of TCO was used. And now explain to us the difference and why it's important to use ROI as a metric moving forward.
So TCO obviously is an internal focused metric around what does it cost me to run something, right? This technology, this software to solve a business need. But it is very black and white, and it looks at starting at point A and ending at point B with no look at any metric outside of that, right? So it's like, how much does it cost me in labor? How much does it cost me in the hardware? Very, very black and white. But
fixed features, right? Because you're not going to be able to expand. So when I look at ROI, to kind of jump on what you're saying a little bit, it's you're getting all these additional features and software application updates and all these additional components that become available to you that enhance your overall agent experience and customer experience, that have real value in delivering services and engagement that you weren't able to do before. And as that TCO try to amortize those funds, right? You end up over time, sure, maybe you're paying less per feature, right? Maybe, depending on how it all works out, but you're certainly not actually providing uh, all the services that your customers are expecting you to deliver, and the timeline, project management, everything else
Absolutely.
is
Yeah, absolutely.
is a
And you know, the
challenge.
one thing you can play games with TCO is you say, well, there's $1 million upgrade on my on-premise infrastructure. That's going to get me features 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I just won't do the $1 million upgrade and I keep my TCO lower, but because I don't really care if I release those features. Now on the outside though, your customers don't get access to kind of the latest and greatest engagement technologies of how I want to interact with your brand. And so what happens is people start shifting to other companies, your NPS goes down. Maybe you start losing, your lifetime value decreases, you start losing repeat business from customers, you know, those types of things. Now, ROI on the other hand is like, if I spend the money on this technology, what are the other financial indicators of benefit I may get, right? So again, improved lifetime value, improved net promoter scores, repeat business. Did I decrease my cost of sale? Like there's a lot of other factors in there rather than just the
Right.
technology and the bodies to run it.
Boost in operations, et cetera. So, all right. Since we only have a few minutes left, something that really kind of stood out to me in preparing for this interview with you today was something that kind of really hit me hard. So I'm going to lead into this here, talking about how customers, when they want to engage in a certain channel of their choice, right? They have Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, chat bots, chat, natural language, voice, all kinds of things, and they more and more want to communicate on that channel. The bold statement that I heard UJET make was that omnichannel is dead. Can you unpack that for me
Yeah,
a
so
little bit?
omnichannel really came about as this idea of allowing lots of channels for customers to touch you as a brand on, right? But they were like single paths in, right? It's either Facebook Messenger or it's Twitter, right? Or it's, WhatsApp or whatever. And an agent may gather that channel and then they're communicating back to you on that, right? So let's just use Facebook as an example, right? So I get on Facebook, I make a complaint, and now an agent's communicating with me, and we're one-to-one on Facebook. Omnichannel is literally kind of this, singular path to connect lots of channels with a brand. Where the market is going, where we as humans, our own behavior is going, is what we call multimodal. So it's
Yes.
multimodal.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Good. I'm glad you
multimodal
went there.
communications is really like you may want to be heard through a Facebook message or a tweet, but maybe the best response is through an SMS or a WhatsApp or a phone call. It's the ability to really move and transcend one channel or another to communicate in whatever that channel, either of preference or channel of, best resolution is, which could be one at a time.
Right.
It also could be simultaneous. So you and I could be chatting here on a phone call, but I may be sending you answers or confirmations in SMS. I may be shooting you a chat with a
Right.
link to then start a co-browse session. And we're using 3 channels at once, which, by the way, is what's starting to happen. And you need to be able to move from one to the other,
Right.
have consolidated data and reporting, and we call it multimodal communications. So the market started way back in the
Right.
2000s. Chat was supposedly going to replace voice. Multi-channel came about, lots of channels, lots of interfaces for agents. Omni-channel was like, okay, let's consolidate the agent interface. But it's like one-to-one channel. And we see that when we deal with brands today. Like you go on chat, you're dealing with a person on chat. You're not really going to be able to move to something else. Multimodal is the future. We have ADD as a human race at this point. We love technologies. We want to be on
Yeah.
5 things at the same time, right?
Unfortunately. Right. All right. Well, listen, Vasili, so glad you're able to join us today. Um, we do have a webinar coming up soon, and where we're going to dive into these topics at a much deeper level. And we have a multi-part series coming up to discuss UJET technologies with some of the experts on your team. I'm excited about those upcoming deep dives into UJET's impact on emerging CX technologies today and beyond. I'd like to encourage our audience to sign up for the webinar on the landing page web link provided below the video so we can remind you about how not to miss the upcoming presentations. I'm Sebastian Anthony Corriere, and I've been your host from VesuvITas, where we are changing the world one extraordinary customer experience at a time.